know my hoops.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
And also, believe it or not, if you've seen anything about the new Republican platform that they're trying to pass in Texas,
Holy crap.
It's
you
horrifying.
don't like the Electoral College for president.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, they're trying to set up this, their platform plans. They want an Electoral College for state. So that we would have to have an Electoral College to send
Yeah.
our senators to Washington and to elect statewide officials like governor. You
Yeah.
wouldn't have a Democratic vote, even for that. That's one of their platform plans.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Horrifying.
I'm also, like Hero, I don't like standing behind the podium myself. I also used to teach. I taught economics at Brookhaven Junior College. When I was when I was at UTD, I was in a program. They let us be adjunct professors at some of the people in the Dallas County Community College District. So I used to do that, and I would never stand behind a podium when I did it. And really, the only thing it reminds me of now when I do it is having to do jury selection or voir dire, because when I'm doing it now, you're standing there, you're asking people questions, and you have to be able to take notes down of what they're answering, so that when you go back, you can remember who it is that you're trying to, who may be biased towards your case that you need to get rid of.
Yeah.
At one point, I didn't have to do that. I talked to some of the ladies in here about that. I'm not going to get into that whole story right now, but I used to have someone that could help me with that. There was a shorthand reporter that would sit at council table with me and take it by hand. And the lady said, we're in that coffee class, might remember that. The last time that I was in this room, about a month ago, we had the Grayson County Bar Association meeting here. And the whole event was about the mental health challenge that we have here in Texas, and especially with our courts, our court system. They had several speakers. One of them, one of the main ones was Larry Phelps. And he gave this presentation, and he showed how, went back to the 1960s, and it showed how the population in Texas had African number, say, tripled. And in the same time that that population tripled, the actual number of mental health beds that we have to care for people was cut in third. He showed this graph, and it was just a clear X from one going down and the other going up. And don't get me wrong, I respect Judge Phillips. I like him a lot as a judge. I really do. He's always been very fair with me, and I think he is a good judge. However, since he's the one that was giving the presentation, and he is the one that had been our Republican state rep for years, I could not help sitting there and thinking, why didn't you do something about it when you could? I didn't see you voting for more funding for our mental health care. Now that you're a judge and you get up there and you tell us if someone is deemed incompetent, the wait for a bed now is 2 years. So if you have somebody that's found incompetent to stand trial, they will sit in a jail cell for 2 years just waiting to get into the state hospital so that they can be treated to hopefully regain competency, or to at least find out if it's possible for that to happen. And so I think that's a very sad state of affairs. And this is one thing that is very important to me. It's near and dear to my heart because it's one of the main things that I've spent my career on. Ever since I started working here in Grayson County almost 25 years ago now, I've been on the mental health court. I've represented people that are being held at the Behavioral Health Center. They're entitled to hearings to determine whether there's good reason for them to be held because they might be a danger to themselves or other people, or whether they should be released. I mean, because if they're being held, they're being deprived of their liberty, and no one can be deprived of their liberty without their day in court. And this is one thing that is a major difference between myself and my opponent. Not only have I represented patients themselves, about a decade or a little bit over a decade ago, the local county court at law judges, both Judge Henderson and Judge Seidman, decided that they were going to stop hearing those cases themselves because there got to be so many of them that it took away from their court time, and they needed some help from people to be able to cover that. So there's a provision in the mental health code whereby the sitting judge can appoint what's called a special master. And the special master sits in place of the elected judge. And so these are people that they know, there's a few of us in town, but that they know, understand the law, and that they trust to rule for them. And so, one thing when you're out campaigning, if someone asks you a difference between myself and my opponent, you can tell them that for the last 10 years, the current sitting judges have entrusted me to rule on their behalf in matters of people's liberty, about whether they are to be set free or whether they need to be held because of mental health reasons. Saw that picture of Bob Slagle up there. I went to his memorial service, and who else here went to his memorial service? Did you go? Did you stay till the end? Yes. Okay. Anybody else go? I've known Bob Slagle almost my entire life, and I got up there and spoke. It's kind of funny. Bobby Slagle was my age. He's his son. And that's how I met Bob Slagle. I played baseball with his son, Bobby. He played shortstop. I played first base. And Bob Slagle was our coach, or one of our coaches. And so that's how I met him. And there have been many people talking about bipartisanship and not having so much animosity between the parties. And Bob Slagle was the epitome of that. I knew who Bob Slagle was. I knew that he worked for LBJ when LBJ was president of the United States. And Bobby knew that I had parents that named me after Barry Goldwater. And yet it was never a problem between us and Bobby, me and Bobby. It never has been, and it never will be. And so Bob Slagle passed that down from one generation to the next. And so I really appreciate that from Mr. Slagle. And he will be sorely missed. He really will be. Why am I running? I put an article in the paper when I first decided to run, and there's something about it on my website, rubartsforjudge.com. Please take a look at it. Thank you, Mark Rush, for taking care of all of that for me. It was something that I thought, I can't say I thought long and hard about it, because I didn't even know that Judge Seidman was retiring until maybe 4 or 5 days before you had to sign up to run. And so I had to make a pretty quick decision. But I had read an article about a guy saying, before you make any major decision, you need to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? I've spent my career being an advocate, and I enjoy being an advocate. And I think I'm a pretty good one. I try to be. But I think my temperament is a little bit better suited to be able to look at both sides and to be fair to both sides. And I think that's a temperament that better suits a judge. Anybody else in here a middle child? Yeah? Got a few middle children in here? Well, we technically had 4 kids. The eldest was my sister. She's 10 years older than me, so she left the house when I was 8. But then it was me and my 2 brothers, and I'm the middle child. I'll call myself the middle child because I'm in between the 2 of them. So I grew up kind of in the middle. Had my older brother and my younger brother, and I ended up negotiating some things between all of us at times as well. But I mean, the main reason that I'm running is I think I'm the most qualified person for the job, flat out. And I also think that it's time that people have a choice in the general election here in Grayson County.
Yes.
Instead of people just winning the Republican primary and then that being it, it's all over.
Yeah.
So it's time to put an end to that.
Thank you.
So, I'm Barry Rubarts, and I approve of things.